Sayonara! Welcome! Guess who's back? Why, it's me, Yoshika, everyone's favorite youthful and beautiful host. By popular demand, I'm back to host not just one, but two chapters. Volume 9, chapters 4 and 5. Before we begin, go visit the wonderful Doki Doki Reading Club's YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe. Oh, how time flies. It feels like yesterday I was teaching my oldest girl how to wrap presents, and my youngest girl is celebrating her first Christmas. And now, my oldest is bringing her girlfriend over for Christmas. My stupid, lovely daughter thinks I'm so dumb that I didn't notice the looks she and Adachi shares with each other. Mother knows best. And since I know best, have a seat next to your number one friend. I made enough hot cocoa for everyone. Now, it's time to Adachi and chill. Okay.
Chapter 4 Tempest. Sakura Christmas Scrolls. This was my second Christmas with the Shimamura. Well, I say was, but it had yet to actually take place.
So, we're having dinner with the family in the evening, so as long as it's during the day, then it's fine.
Those were Shimamura's plans for the day. Somehow, I couldn't help but feel like they'd been exactly the same last year. Her family sure meant a lot to her, didn't it? Perhaps that was normal. Perhaps I was the weird one for not caring about mine? I simply had no idea how to interact with my parents. I'd gone my entire life without bothering to learn how, and now it was far too late. That wasn't the correct way to go about it, was it? No, it couldn't be. And yet, it was the reality I lived in. I'd have to do with what I had. Family, huh? I found myself spending the next few moments thinking about it. Would it be possible for Shimamura and I to one day become family? If so, then how would we go about doing that? What methods did we have available to us? Adoption? No, that didn't seem quite right. Maybe. The more I thought about it, the more confused I found myself growing. I decided to leave the topic of family be for now. After all, the real question I should be asking myself right now had to do with how I was going to spend my time with Shimamura. As I'd recently noticed, thinking about these things while loitering around was quickly becoming a habit of mine. What was it that we'd done last year? Walked around the mall with me wearing the china dress? Yeah, I think that was it. How nostalgic.
But why?
Why had I chosen to wear the china dress for Christmas? I had tried thinking back to it, yet the answer simply wouldn't come to me. What must have gone through my mind for me to borrow such a thing from my workplace? Like, seriously, what had I been thinking? I came so close to clutching my head. It had only been a year, yet already, I found it impossible to make any sense out of my own actions. I didn't even dare to imagine how those around must have seen me. As for Shimamura, she sure was tolerant not to have walked away the instant I showed up. While I personally found this tolerance to be a big part of what made her so attractive to me, the truth of the matter could have been that she simply didn't care about other people all that much. What about me? Did she care about me at all? I certainly wanted her to. Now, saying that didn't mean she had to be the one to make it happen, or at least not the only one. Surely there had to be things I, too, could do to help. Thoughts like those quickly filled my heart with worry. If I were to dress normally like everyone else, then would that lead her to ignoring me like she did all those people? Perhaps perhaps the China dress hadn't been the wrong choice after all. That was what I found myself believing, what I wanted to believe. There were a lot of times, especially during winter, when I had turned to look at Shimamura, only to find her dozing off. I really did feel like I had to remain vigilant, or our days would end up flying by just like that.
Wait, no. Dozing off isn't really the right word.
That'd be like feeling super tired. On second thought, maybe that was accurate after all.
Anyway,
Only now did I realize. I really did think about Shimamura a lot. What about her? How much did she spend thinking about me on any given day? 5 minutes? 10? Assuming she was in a good mood, was it reasonable to even expect an hour? Perhaps. That said, I couldn't imagine there being anything about me she could spend a whole hour thinking about. I found myself staring down at my fingertips. They appeared so very thin. Were Shimamura there in front of me, would I feel nervous? Would I bite my lip? Would my eyes jump around? Would the world before me grow dim? Would I lose all sense of what I was saying? While those moments of panic might have been vivid, they weren't necessarily a good thing. Perhaps I'd do well to make it my goal to get to a point where I could remain calm in front of her. How would it feel were Shimamura ever to find out how much time I spent thinking about her? Pretty embarrassing, probably.
Christmas! Christmas!
the small, glowing creature continued jumping up and down in place, accompanied by a very characteristic cry. It might have been because I'd only just woken up, but she appeared really bright to me, almost bright enough to rival the sun.
Good morning!
The lion cub greeted me the same way she always did. As for me, I responded by simply shifting sides. What was she trying to say? Crystal? Crystal Mall? Whatever the case, I felt far too tired to attempt to figure it out. Meanwhile, Yashiro continued bouncing cheerfully by my pillow.
It's mine! Oh! Christmas?
The random gush of winter wind brushing against my cheek had focused my brain just enough to allow me to reach that conclusion. Doing so, I found myself just a tiny bit worried. I had accidentally overslept and missed it, hadn't I? I went ahead and quickly checked the clock. Even if not likely, I knew myself well enough to know that this was a real concern. The combination of weekend and winter like we were experiencing currently often proved to be quite fiendish.
Huh. Oh, okay. Looks like I'm good.
The clock was displaying just past 10 in the morning. In other words, there was still plenty of time left until I was supposed to meet with Adachi.
Huh. I better be more careful from now on.
Yes.
Yashiro noted. I couldn't help but feel like she had no idea why we were looking at the clock.
Anyway, you're excited for today too?
Indeed. I've come to learn about the existence of charisma.
I didn't know about it last year, but I do now. She had it. Sounded quite proud of herself for whatever reason. I just had to pinch her cheek for that.
Just to make sure, can you explain Christmas to me in your own words?
It is a day upon which you eat cake.
Huh. Well, I guess that's close enough.
Yay! I could hear Yashiro celebrate. Her cheek still pinched between my finger. Simply looking at her made me feel exhausted.
Oh, so Sho told me that a man called Santa comes by and gives you presents.
Right.
It seemed that my sister was going to go yet another year believing in Santa. There was something kind of adorable about that. That said, thinking about it rationally, if strange creature like the one I was looking at right now could exist, then was it really all that big of a stretch to think that Santa Claus and his flying reindeer could do? I gave her cheek one last pinch before letting her go. And yet, even after I did, her face still remained just as deformed as it'd been. Was this just how she was going to be from now on? I couldn't help but find myself freaking out a little.
I've been really good this year, so I'm sure I'll get a lot of presents.
If you say so.
Now then, hand them over, please.
Huh? What on earth was she talking about? That was my initial reaction as the girl held out her tiny hands toward me. Coincidentally, this was also where her face returned back to normal. Let's just say that I was glad, and not think about it any further.
I'm not Santa too.
Correct. Your name is Shimamura.
Although the first and the last letter match, none of the one in-betweens were the same.
Sho told me that Santa comes at night while you're sleeping.
That's true.
However, even if you wake up and see that you have received presents, you must brush your teeth first before opening them.
She made sure to whisper, as if what she was telling me was some sort of big secret. It seemed that, for her, presents being something edible was a given.
Therefore, I came to the conclusion that I'd rather receive them right now.
Like I told you just a second ago, I'm not Santa.
Correct. Your name is Shimamura.
Enough!
I don't mind who the presents come from.
The girl grinned.
Huh. Well, I guess it's fine.
The Santa of our house likely wasn't going to be bringing her any presents anyway.
But just to make sure, do you have any preference when it comes to presents?
I wouldn't mind a cake, but what I really love are donuts.
Huh, got it.
I might as well buy her something while I was out. That was assuming I didn't forget.
Christmas sure is nice.
She'd yet to receive any present, but already there was a big old smile on her face.
I think I agree.
It was only thanks to the previous one I'd spent with Adachi that I could say that. Without it, my answer would, in all likelihood, have been different. That said, given how special Christmas seemed to be for a lot of people, Adachi and Yashiro, just to name a few, perhaps it would make sense for me to jump on it too, get all enthusiastic and head out somewhere. The only question was, where?
I've gotta tell Sho about this. She'll be so jealous.
That was the last I heard of Yashiro as she sprinted out of the hallway.
You do that.
Those two sure got along, didn't they? I couldn't help but wonder what my sister had asked from Santa this year. Last year, it'd been something for her aquarium, I think. Maybe she wanted something for Yashiro this time? Just kidding, of course. On the topic of fish, it was only now that I realized just how much Yashiro resembled a sea angel.
Christmas, huh?
I went ahead and lifted my arms into the air to pump myself up. It was one's duty to be in high spirits during Christmas, I felt. We had slightly fancier food than normal. Santa didn't show up, and then it got too cold for me to even consider stepping outside my room. That was pretty much how I went every single year. Maybe I'd been excited the first few times, but these days, it was impossible for me to act as enthusiastic about it as our little lodger.
Every year.
I used my finger to comb my hair so that it wasn't hanging over my eyes. When Christmas next came around, would Adachi and I once again be spending it together? Third-year students like us normally spent winter studying for entrance exam, so there was that. Not that I even knew if Adachi wanted to continue studying. I kinda got the feeling that if I said I was going to university, she'd do the same. And if I said that I wasn't, then again, she wouldn't either. She really did like matching her steps with me. In some sense, I suppose you could call that diligence.
As for me,
There had been a time in my life when I'd hated people like that. I hated them so much that I couldn't stand it. The act of thinking back to the old version of myself, constantly sour, displeased at everything, left me in two minds every single time. On one hand, those days felt very nostalgic to me, but on the other, I wanted to erase all memories of them from my mind. There was only one thing I knew for sure, and that was that I'd been much more lively back then. Trying to decide whether to yawn or not, I spent the next few moments staring into space. Doing so, both the images of Adachi and Terumi appeared in my mind.
we really didn't have many places to visit. There was the mall, the station, and besides those, not much else. Even the park was ruled out due to it currently being far too cold outside. I found myself taking a quick glance at the boomerang still sitting on my shelf. Even now, a full year later, I still couldn't fathom why Shimamura had gotten me a boomerang for Christmas. I had to imagine that if there ever were to come such a day on which I began understanding what went on inside her mind, then that will mark a whole new world being open to me. Shimamura really was that deep. With thoughts like those floating on my mind, I finished changing clothes, checked my hair, and took a step away from the mirror. That exact look was something that I'd done at least 3 times by that point, if not more. So that might have sounded like a lot. There have been times in my past when I'd gone well past 10 repeats, and as such, I felt like I was definitely making progress. No matter how much I attempted to prepare beforehand, I'd always find myself having doubts concerning my choice of outfit when the day actually came. It was only made worse by my habit of panicking even when there was still plenty of time left, which will then lead me to running away. That was exactly what ended up happening this time as well. Finding myself in the living room, I just happened to come across my mother, who'd gotten her toe through the front door mere moments earlier. On her shoulder, she was carrying a large bag, the same one I often saw her taking with her when she left the house. Our eyes then met. There was something very peculiar about the woman's stare, and for a moment I found myself unable to muster up a response.
You're heading out?
Yeah,
My reply was met by a disinterested sigh. It seemed that we both found this situation equally uncomfortable. And yet, what the woman said next couldn't have come as more of a shock to me.
Be nice to that girl, okay?
She stated, turning around and exiting their living room into her own bedroom. However, not a moment later, the door opened for a second time just for her to peek her head out and to say the following.
What's up with those clothes?
it's just.
I'd barely managed to get a word out by the time she'd already disappeared. This time for good. How fidgety she was being today, seriously. I didn't even get a chance to ask her what girl she was talking about. For me, the only one who came to mind was Shimamura. But could that really have been it? Not once had I brought her over to our place. I mean, sure, there was that one time she'd seen me off all the way to our front door, but it wasn't like she'd happened to come across my mother while doing so. Where else could the two have possibly met? Nothing really came to mind. Perhaps she'd gotten her mixed up with someone else? Well, that could have been it. Although the problem then became with whom. I didn't really have anyone other than Shimamura.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
Imitating a certain someone, I decided to give up for now. Having done that, I then exited the house and got on my bike. The sky above me, as I began pedaling, was clear without a single cloud.
What do you want to have for lunch?
Actually, I'm just about to head out.
Really? That's great to hear. Next time, try to sleep past breakfast time too. Okay?
Laughing to herself, Mom proceeded to give my head a repeated series of smack.
Come on, stop! Stop that! I told you I was heading out!
The hairdo I'd gone out of my way to make pretty was quickly growing disheveled. For a brief moment, I considered going back and fixing it, but figuring that was too much work, I ultimately decided against it. What was the point when the wind outside would ruin it anyway? That said, I did brush Mom's hand off. Leaning against the hallway's wall, the woman's eye turned to look away.
Going out on Christmas? Huh? With a man?
Excuse me?
Well, you know Hougetsu. You're at that age already. Mom's gotta start asking.
There was something about her tone that made it sound like she was talking to a baby. Sure, she was also sticking her nose where it didn't belong, of course, but that bothered me way less for some reason.
The answer is no.
Is it a woman then?
That's the implication.
Not saying that she was wrong.
I'm just hanging out with Adachi. That's all.
Adachi?
What was that for? I was of the opinion that the person in question not being present was no excuse for such rude remarks.
You two sure do get along, don't you?
I suppose.
I answered vaguely, all the while fiddling with the strands of hair that had gotten itself looped around my ear. Would there eventually come a day where I could be honest about my relationship with her to my parents? They both had a very lenient side to them, and I kinda got a feeling that they might be surprisingly willing to accept it. Kinda like I'd myself accepted Adachi and begun sharing my time with her.
Do you have fun with her?
Mom asked me, no longer leaning against a wall and with a arm now crossed.
Fun? I'd say it's more like...
I quickly began looking for an alternative expression to use. Doing so, my mind wound up returning to the conversation I'd had with Pancho during the school trip. By no means did I think about our time spent together negatively. That being the case, the question then became, what did I think about it? For some reason, I found myself unable to answer that question.
Adachi always looks like she's enjoying herself, so I guess that's good enough.
Failing to find an answer, I ended up turning the question around. As far as replies went, how would this one rank? D, perhaps? I would have liked to think it was at least better than a straight F.
Adachi looks like she's having fun. You say? Yes. Yes.
Though there was something about her words that seemed to hint at a deeper meaning. I decided to pass it off by deciding that she was probably just acting that way on purpose. Soon enough, it didn't take the woman long to switch subjects.
Her family doesn't celebrate charisma?
Why did you announce it like that? A few seconds later, I suddenly realized who it was that Yashiro had been imitating.
Not sure. If I had to guess, though, I'd probably say no.
It seemed very unlikely considering both the personalities of Adachi's mother and relationship between the two. That reminded me, not once had I heard anything about her dad. Well, probably not. At least, as much as I would have liked to say there was no way I would forget something like that, I slightly lack the confidence necessary in my own memory to do so. I suppose it was possible that he simply wasn't home all that often, and as such, didn't leave much of a presence. As it turned out, there was still a surprising number of things I didn't know about Adachi.
Well, in that case, if she doesn't have any other plans, why don't you bring her here after you're done?
Who? Adachi?
Yeah, dinner gets more fun the more people there are around.
Those were Mom's word to me. Assuming all those people got along, then sure, I would tend to agree. The problem was, the way she said it, that part clearly wasn't something she cared much about. Though I couldn't personally imitate it, I suppose there might have been people out there whom such positivity was very helpful.
Um, I'll ask her.
A grin formed on the woman's face as I said that.
Ooh, I think I might do the same then.
Huh? You're bringing someone over too? Who?
Sorry, but that's a secret.
You know you don't sound cute when you do that, right?
This comment was clearly unwelcome, earning me a light kick on the shin.
I do have relationships too, thank you very much. But yeah, anyway, looking forward to it.
Can we talk about the fact that you kicked me when you can no longer continue the conversation normally?
You've gotten better at dodging. I'll say that.
Well, thanks.
Only when it comes to your feet, though.
Shut up.
It was there that I heard light footsteps to my side. I turned my head, only to witness Yashiro running full speed into the kitchen with her hands held out in front of her. Mom noticed her too and quickly went after her, followed by Yashiro being hurled into the hallways and rolling off. All that in the span of no more than a few seconds. Truly, what a strange house we lived in. This noisiness would have driven me absolutely insane back in middle school, but now I just found it relaxing. If I had to describe the sensation, I'd say it was like bringing my hand near a heater that had just been turned on.
Huh? Oh my. This is quite a nostalgic turn of events.
Those were the very first words Shimamura spoke to me as she showed up to the spot where we'd agreed to meet. I chose to take them as a positive sign. Why? Because it showed that she still remembered. It was clear looking at Shimamura that very little of what happened stuck with her, and yet, when it came to me, she'd made an exception. That said, happiness was by no means the only sensation I experienced in that moment. There was also embarrassment. Lots of it. We'd chosen to meet under the giant Christmas tree located in the center of the plaza, immediately beyond the mall's entrance. The amount of people around us rivaled that of a big city train station, which in turn caused the air to feel so warm, it was like someone had turned the heater up by a whole 2 notches. There were parents with their children, men and women, and also more than a handful of female couples mixed in.
So, is this what you always wear in your free time, Adachi?
No. Frankly, I'm not sure why I went with it myself.
After trying so hard to pick something else, and failing, I had once again found myself wearing a china dress. The only difference was that this time, I had not borrowed the dress I wore at work, but instead had gone out and bought one. In other words, it was my own. I bought myself a china dress. So much thought had gone into that decision. Or had I really been thinking at all?
Not that I'm complaining. I think it looks great on you. Plus, since I don't get a lot of opportunities to see it, it gives you this kind of special feeling whenever I do.
Shimamura proceeded to stare at me intensely as she spoke. It was as if she was trying to observe the dress from every angle. Ashamed, I attempted to use my coat to conceal it, only for her to grab my wrist, stopping me. Doing so placed Shimamura in a position where it almost looked like she was trying to get a peek underneath my coat. Needless to say, I found it all incredibly embarrassing. I could feel my eyes spinning like they always did.
How lucky. Just the other day, I was wondering when I'd get to see you wearing a china dress again.
Huh?
Without as much as a warning, Shimamura used her finger to trace the slit on my dress. This caused me to jump into the air. Still holding my wrist, Shimamura ended up being dragged in too, and for the next few moments, it kind of looked like we were dancing. Dancing badly. I lifted my head to look at her, only to see that she was smiling. After I'd stopped jumping, Shimamura quickly apologized.
Sorry. Did I startle you?
No. No, you didn't.
What was this redness surging out from deep within my chest? I could almost hear my heartbeat ringing in my ears. It wasn't getting any better, and I felt like soon enough, my head was going to start hurting. I really should make being able to remain calm in front of her my goal for the next year. Like, seriously. As for this year, it was sadly far too late already.
Still, Adachi, I do think you're much more interesting this way.
Interesting? This way?
What she'd said made absolutely no sense to me. Choosing not to explain herself any further, Shimamura instead continued smiling. It was likely the case that she wasn't quite sure what she'd meant herself. Still, if the gist of it was that she found me interesting, then was it alright for me to be happy about that? I didn't know, and there was no time to think. I, too, was left to prioritize the present.
Do you mind if we hold the hands?
I suggested, all the while offering her the same hand she'd been gripping till just moments earlier. At last, I'd learned to do it like this, instead of losing control and taking her hand by force. I wasn't panicking anymore. I was calm. Calm. Shimamura had come here just to see me. She was my girlfriend. There was absolutely no reason for me to panic. I'd had to repeat that to myself so many times to be able to get to this point.
Sure, that's fine with me.
Like usual, Shimamura took my hand with seemingly no hesitation. Her fingertips felt a bit cold to the touch, cold enough to let me assume she'd not been holding hands with anyone coming here. A sigh of relief left my mouth. With our fingers interlocked, the two of us then began walking. The direction Shimamura had chosen for us was lined up with the glowing signs of restaurants. Now, let me start off by saying, I really did enjoy us being able to hold hands like it was no big deal. I genuinely did. Of course, that being said, I would have been lying if I failed to mention that there was a part of me that wondered if the way we were doing it was perhaps a little too casual. Like, had a relationship perhaps started to... What was the expression I was looking for? Cool off? Shimamura specifically was scanning our surroundings for a place to eat in a way that made it seem as if she doesn't fair at all. Our hands continued bouncing up and down between us.
Say, Shimamura, have you ever felt embarrassed before?
Huh? Hmm. Well, of course. I doubt there's anyone out there who hasn't.
Actually, wait. I think there might be, she quickly added. Was she thinking of someone in specific?
Oh, that reminds me. Do you mind if we go buy donuts first? I feel like if I save that for last, I'll end up forgetting about it.
Donuts?
Yeah, a certain strange creature asked me to buy her some. Said they are all she wants for Christmas.
She laughed wryly. I kind of felt like I now knew who she'd been thinking about.
Hmm?
Those thoughts of resentment had seemingly manifested themselves as pressure being put into my fingertips, as all of a sudden, Shimamura turned her head into the direction of our hands. Compared to hers, mine was just a little on the pale side. My fingers were also a tad bit longer than hers. A part of why I was gripping her so tight was to bridge this gap. Saying nothing, Shimamura lifted her gaze and went back to scanning our surroundings. It was almost as if to her, things such as the fancy Christmas lights and the red car being displayed in the middle of the walkway were just ordinary parts of the world. As for me, I too continued staring at her like usual. Shimamura really was everything I thought about, wasn't she? There had been a time in my past when coming to such a realization would have been far beyond my abilities. The fact that I now could show that at last, my head was starting to cool down.
Shimamura, how much do you think about me?
Huh?
Having been viewing the various billboards, Shimamura quickly turned her attention towards me. She did it so fast, it almost looked like her eyeballs were going to roll out from their sockets.
How much as seen?
Like, does my name ever pass your mind?
Sure it does.
She was taking this all so incredibly casually. Then again, I suppose it was possible that the fact that I saw it that way said more about me than it did about her.
But how often?
Oh, I see now. That's sort of how much, huh?
She proceeded to knit her brows and stroke her chin.
Sorry, but I haven't really been keeping count.
That was honestly a pretty fair response, I felt. People didn't normally think about what went on in their heads to such an extent. While I'd been doing it ever since we met, and as such could tell easily, I suppose the same wasn't true for Shimamura. A part of me did wish that she would do it too, but at the same time, it wasn't like I could ever make her. We'd just arrived at the donut shop when Shimamura asked me the following.
Wow, they really come up as that uninterested to you, Adachi.
Yes, I was about to answer on instinct, before quickly swallowing my words. Still, it did seem like my facial expression alone had been enough to carry across the general idea.
That's no good then. I kind of feel bad now. Like, real bad.
Could she really not notice herself? How the disinterested tone of her voice went completely against what she was saying? It was almost like she was reading straight out of a script or something. That said, perhaps this was all simply part of Shimamura's appeal? In the moment that thought crossed my mind, I knew it was over for me.
No, that's not what I was saying at all.
Furiously, I shook my head from side to side. She thought a lot about me, and I knew that.
Hmm. Alright, let's sit down for a bit, shall we?
Shimamura suggested while pointing her finger into the direction of a nearby donut shop. Through the window, I could sense the smell of something sweet, combined with that of Chinese food, which they also appeared to serve during lunchtime. Though I myself had never heard of such a practice, the reason for that might simply have been the fact that I normally never came here at this time of the day. Besides the one we were going to be eating there at the store, Shimamura bought herself 3 donuts to take with her. One for her sister, and one, or 2, for that strange creature, I assumed. Having placed them in her bag, she then let out a gasp, as if she'd realized something before turning my way.
What?
Oh, I completely forgot to get you a Christmas present.
What a bummer. I even remembered it last year, she added in a very apologetic tone of voice.
Oh, I didn't get you anything either.
I'd been so preoccupied with choosing what to wear that I'd ended up forgetting too.
Really? That's perfect then.
Is it?
Yes, let's go buy something together once we're done eating.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
And so, a plan was formed. Perhaps this was the best way things could have played out after all.
I did often feel like it was very difficult for me to find things for the two of us to do. And yet, despite those feelings, I still wished to share my time with her. Perhaps this itself was what could be called affection? Both of us carried trays, and we then began looking for a free table. Though there were normally plenty, today the store was absolutely crowded. Judging by the high-pitched voices of the children, a lot of those customers appeared to be family. We weaved through them, and eventually managed to find a spot near the windows. However, it only took us sitting down to figure out why this table had been left empty. Being located in close vicinity to the emergency exit, I could feel something resembling a draft blowing against both my shoulders and my elbows as I sat there. Then again, given that my cheeks were practically burning by this point, maybe that was a good thing after all?
Listen, Adachi. I love you. Of course I do.
We'd barely settled down when Shimamura stated that, though her tone sounded very casual, the actual contents of what she was saying were anything but. She was confessing her love to me. That's what it was.
I see.
My attempt at remaining calm as possible resulted in me stumbling over my words not once, but twice.
However, if I'm not able to convey that properly, then that means I have some work to do too.
Please go ahead.
It didn't sound like a bad thing, hence my answer. To this, Shimamura responded in the form of a light nod before grabbing her donut at the table. She didn't actually eat the whole thing, but instead broke off a tiny piece of the chocolate crusting and tossed that alone into her mouth. Appearing satisfied by the sweetness, a soft smile then appeared on her face. My mouth was left hanging wide open too as I stared at her.
To me, it's to a point where I don't think I'd be able to live without you. That's much you.
I ended up running out of steam halfway through, and by the end of it, my voice had been reduced to a point where you could barely make out what I was saying.
I hate to interrupt you when you're being all passionate, but could you please repeat that last part? I don't think I quite caught you.
Shimamura, on the other hand, showed me no mercy. I was driven into a corner by her large eyes and her bright smile.
You meanie.
No, no. It's not that. I genuinely want to hear everything you have to say. All of it.
There are times when it can be hard to ask again, she added. Her eyes turned the other way for some reason.
So, please, go ahead. I'm listening now.
As if to emphasize her point, Shimamura pushed her hair aside and exposed her ears. Then, without her so much touching them, they began moving all on their own. I was left feeling shocked, to say the least. This reaction appeared to have shown on my face, and sounding a little confused, Shimamura asked me the following.
Hmm? Is something wrong?
It's just you can move your hair. I've never seen anyone who could do that before.
Seriously?
Shimamura moved her ears again, showing that it wasn't really something she thought about.
My sister can do it too. Is it really that rare?
Probably.
You can't, Adachi.
Though I figured it was all likelihood pointless, I still did it, as I was told, pulling back my hair and showing my ears to her. Now, how was I meant to flex them in order to do this? I tried tensing up the back of my head, but there was no indication of this doing anything to my ears. The only thing I did manage to accomplish was turning my face red. Observing me, Shimamura went ahead and took a bite out of her donut.
Well, I guess it's only fair that I occasionally beat you at something.
The smile which appeared on Shimamura's face made it clear that she felt very much satisfied. When was it that I'd beaten her? When we were playing table tennis? I did have a distinct memory of me winning most of those games. Other than that, nothing really came to mind. If anything, I felt like I was always the one losing. Spending the majority of my days obsessing over Shimamura had to be a sign of defeat. Surely.
Anyways, we ended up getting pretty far off topic here.
Yeah.
So then, what were you saying? Why is it that you can't live without me?
With the half-eaten donut in hand, Shimamura returned the conversation back to its original track. There was no way I'm gonna get away. Not that I've had such thoughts to begin with. Never. I'd never run away from her. I breathed in a mouthful of the sweet, bright air around us. There, as if clenching my front teeth together, I forced the following words out.
It's because I love you so much.
Oh, I guess I heard you right the first time then. Sorry.
I knew you were just being mean.
There was something very childish about the way Shimamura laughed. Her goal had clearly been to gloss over the matter, and to no one's surprise, this method of hers ended up working wonders on me. It was so unfair. So horribly unfair. Why? She normally never opened herself to others, and I had to wonder, was the fact that I felt like I was peering into her heart the reason why I found myself so attracted to her?
I gotta say, I kinda feel like I'm starting to get used to it.
Shimamura had a look around her before letting out another giggle.
So, you love me, huh? Yes, yes.
Why are you nodding your head like that?
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I don't doubt your love. Nothing of the sort.
I could feel blood rushing in my ears as she said that.
It's just, how to put it? It's like you were letting out something pretty, something red, something round.
Red?
Was I really going to end up bleeding every single time? I suppose it was possible. My soul certainly felt that way. And yet,
Still, Shimamura, you say you'd be able to live without me just fine. That's kinda depressing.
Depressing? Really?
that was the only word I could come up with that described the emotions I was feeling. It was kinda like digging a hole and then sinking down into it. As to why this was the case, the answer probably lay in the fact that for me, Shimamura was what made up the entirety of my world. In case of any sort of isolation from her, all I could do was feel depressed. To sink. Good thing I wasn't living in Flatland.
Hmm.
That was Shimamura's initial response. It very much sounded like she just wanted to get something out there. As if to support this theory, a few seconds later, she added the following.
That might be.
This she hadn't said simply for the sake of it. No. It was clearly that these were her true thoughts.
I used to have a lot of friends in the past who I barely meet anymore. And yet, my life still continues. If it ever did come to it, I get a feeling like the same thing will happen with our relationship too.
She followed this by lifting her right hand. Her hand that I wasn't currently holding, slowly into the air. Her fingers grasped at nothing, and then released, only for her to take my hand once more, and much more strongly this time.
That is why I need to do my best not to lose you. To suppress the part of myself that, yes, I found everything bothersome.
Bothersome?
Exactly. Questions like, what do I think about you? How do I want us to be? I can't just ignore them and pretend like they don't matter. Once it becomes a habit, you don't really tend to notice when things start fading away.
That is a very sad thing, Shimamura added. Though she laughed, she too looked a little sad behind her expression. Was she recalling a similar experience that I had occurred in her past? I could only imagine, though. Staring at her, a thought passed through my mind. I never wanted to get to a point where she'd think back to me in such a way. I would not walk down that path. That was why, in this moment, those emotions ended up pushing me forward. It's always been like that, and I got the feeling it'd always be. There were simply powers of that sort in a play between me and Shimamura. I took her hand, the one she'd not taken. I grasped her tight. Shimamura's initial reaction was to stare at me with her eyes wide open. A second later, a sigh left her mouth, followed by a soft smile. That was the way in which she smiled was the same as always. She looked so much more mature than me, giving me the illusion that the height gap between us had been reversed.
So, we're a ring now, huh? It's kinda inconvenient, don't you think?
We can't do anything like this, she added, while shaking her arms up and down. While the simple act of staring at her directly might have been more than enough for me, it was certainly true that there was little else we could do. I couldn't help but feel like I'd once again made a mistake of some sort. That said, had I done nothing, I would never have gotten to know that Shimamura's hands felt slightly cold to the touch.
I figured it was best for the time being.
The things we could do now, we'd do them now. And as for things we couldn't, those we'd do later. That alone was more than enough. The fact alone that there existed a tomorrow caused me to feel thankful. A tomorrow with Shimamura.
Thinking about you, Adachi, I really get the feeling that you live fully in the present.
Huh? You do?
The way she said that almost made it sound kinda cool. Was the way I live my life really worthy of a description? Then again, it was true that when it came to memories, I certainly lacked those. At least for now. Present was the only span of time where Shimamura existed for me. She'd been there last year, yes. That was exactly why it didn't count as the past. I couldn't help but wonder, would there one day come a time when I get to spend my past with her?
Things are always very cleanly cut with you. I can't say that I.
Shimamura had been in the middle of saying something. However, instead of finishing her sentence, she simply closed her eyes.
I was going to say that I don't like it, but I think there's another word that fits better. Yes, yes.
Mumbling something to herself, Shimamura went ahead and looked right at me, as if she was staring directly into my eyes. She then opened her mouth.
I love you, Adachi.
Those were the words that came out. This was followed by her blushing slightly and looking away. While her words were certainly pleasant, it was that reaction of hers that truly captured my heart and caused me to lose all senses.
Huh?
Mere seconds later, she'd already returned, this time with her eyes wide open.
You kept Adachi Sakura written all over your face.
Huh? What's that supposed to mean?
This nonsense comment was followed by Shimamura stretching her arm towards my direction. Her fingers were already so warm that when she touched me, it felt like my skin was melting down.
Your ears do.
She pinched my ears, then my cheek.
They're all colored like Sakura flowers.
Shimamura laughed. She really seemed to be enjoying herself. As for me, probably looked like I've been hit by a violent Sakura.
Branded chapter. Shimamura and Adachi and Christmas.
What do you... What would you say about going on a date?
Excuse me?
Well, in that case, how about we make it a party?
Is the problem with your head or your Japanese?
Excuse me?
I stopped to think about it for a second.
If I was forced to say, then I'll probably say Japanese.
Really now?
Then again, both date and party are English words.
Smartass.
The woman responded the exact same way my daughter would. I couldn't help but laugh a little. I proceeded to scratch my leg as waves of hot air coming from the heating device blew against it.
By the way, I still don't know why you called me.
Ah, yes. There's this tradition in our family. Every year on Christmas, we get together to eat a fancier than normal meal.
Sounds very lovely.
I called you to ask if you'd like to come by.
Huh?
Naturally, I'm the one who makes the food.
Pretty incredible, huh? I added as a brag. Neither my husband nor my daughters really did any cooking, leaving it as my domain for easy compliments. That reminded me, I'd forgotten to bring up the topic of Adachi's mom with Hougetsu. Maybe I should do that today at some point? Meanwhile, still waiting for me to stop bragging, the tone of the woman's voice was starting to grow distinctively deeper.
You really are
Yes?
an idiot.
Really?
What on earth makes you think I'd just walk in on another family's Christmas party?
It's normal in America. Totally normal.
Not that I had any clue what went on there. That said, thinking about all the Bobs and Johns, the image that came to my mind was definitely of them partying on.
Besides, you wouldn't be by yourself.
I don't need you.
Just like that, I'd been found out.
I didn't mean me.
Well, that's good, but I can't think of anyone else then.
There is your daughter, Adachi.
The words had barely left my mouth when I realized that wasn't actually the girl's given name. Regardless, it seemed to convey the message just fine, as immediately afterwards, the woman's voice felt silent, completely silent. Was she still breathing okay? As I waited for her to reply, I went ahead and stretched my limbs as far as they would go. Doing so, a strange and even moan left my mouth. If I had to guess, it was probably loud enough for her to hear it too.
What do you mean?
My girl just left the house to go out with yours.
Oh, yes. I'm aware.
After that, she'll come here to eat Christmas dinner with us. I think.
You think.
Well, we didn't make any actual plans, but I'm pretty sure she will come.
If there was one thing my daughter could do well, it was making those sorts of invitations. When has she learned that skill? Pretty recently, I felt. For someone who spent most of her days spacing out, people sure seem willing to take a liking to her. Let's say that she inherited that last part from me, and the spacing out from her father. Yes, yes.
If the girl's going to be there, then I'm definitely not interested.
Why?
Is that sarcasm? Or can you really not guess?
No. Are you on bad terms or something? If so, then why not use this as an opportunity to get closer?
Right there, a glowing ball of light ran past me on her way to the kitchen. I quickly grabbed her by the collar.
Huh.
Good grief.
I could hear a deep sigh coming from her end of the cowl.
Even if Adachi does come here, it'll still be kinda like an away game for her. That's why, being her mother, you should come too.
Me offering Sakura support. That's not how it'd go.
Huh? You won't back up your own daughter? Are you an evil person or something?
Now you're just being ridiculous. No, it's not like that. Actually, I don't want to talk about this right now.
You should try smiling and holding her hand just once. Even if you need to force yourself. Smiling is something you ought to get used to.
Sorry, but that isn't possible.
That's why I said, even if you need to force yourself.
Once you do it once, it won't be impossible anymore, I added.
Don't you think it'll be nice spending Christmas with your daughter? To me, it seemed like the right thing to do.
That said, there was no doubt in my mind that were the two to be left by themselves, the air between them would immediately grow stagnant.
Think of me as the one providing the lubricant.
Ugh!
Wow! So easy! So flexible!
Is it fun talking by yourself?
Quite. Why not give it a shot sometime?
It was what always let me act so positive.
Besides, as long as you can make memories, does it matter if nothing happens?
In the distant future, decades from now, it'd be nice to have something to think back to. I felt that to be one of the most important things in life.
So, at the end of the day, you're only doing this for purely selfish reasons?
I wonder.
It was true that I hadn't invited her just to be considerate. The more fun people there were around, the more fun it got. That was like I used to fuel my actions.
Your husband can come too if you want.
Only after the words had left my mouth did I realize that we didn't actually have enough room in the dinner table for that. Especially not with this thing around. I thought to myself as I shook the critter I was holding from left to right. She seemed to be having a lot of fun just hanging there.
I don't have a husband.
Oh, you don't? My bad then.
It's fine. Anyway, am I really coming there?
I'm not the one you should be asking that.
I can't be bothered to say no, so you decide. Seriously, just thinking about this is wearing me out.
Come!
I stated loudly. Through the glowing critter, though the glowing critter likely didn't know what I was doing, she still went ahead and did the same.
So, I should come then.
Sure. Why not? Act more positive. It'll be a lot of fun. For me.
I get the feeling you could make anything fun for yourself.
Incorrect. I'll have you know, I actually get lonely quite easily.
Oh, really?
Yep, that's why you should drop by. We start eating at around 7.
Sure.
And that was everything I wanted to say to her. About to end the call, I heard the woman let out a extremely deep sigh.
What is it?
I'm starting to regret ever giving you my phone number.
I laughed before ending the call, this time for good. That sure was fun. The woman was calling her daughter, but in a very different way. How interesting.
Oh, Shimamura is almost back.
The little critter stated suddenly, still in my grave and with her eyes pointed at the front door.
Really? You can tell? How?
By the smell of donuts.
Not sure I get what you mean.
I really didn't. That said, it was true that there were things in this world only visible to others. Take me and Adachi's mother, for example. Our minds were totally different, and so were the things we could see. You needed other people to get the full picture. Anyway, still holding the girl, I got up and began making my way towards the entrance hall.
Oh,
There it was, the usual knock signaling that she was home. Was certain someone be standing next to her? Almost certainly.
Mommy, are you Santa?
why do you say that?
Because you gave Adachi her mama as a present.
The small ball of light responded, all the while shaking her body from side to side.
You might have a point.
Now that she mentioned it, there was something kinda wonderful about it, wasn't there?
For someone who only hangs around to eat all our food, you do say some pretty smart things from time to time.
I am a very good person, yes.
Deciding to keep this present as a surprise for the time being, I went ahead and welcomed the two in.
Welcome home, my daughters.
It was too much work to do it any other way, and so I ended up just making both of them my daughters.
Chapter 5. Because our relationship isn't so clean cut.
I'm...
My daughter. Yes.
Mom was there to greet us as we arrived at my place. I wasn't sure why, but for some reason, she decided to treat both of us as her daughters. Whereas I was more than used to her weird antics, Adachi, on the other hand, appeared visibly confused. We'd been holding hands till just mere moments ago. As I took off my shoes, I went ahead and recalled her warmth.
You're fine with that too, right?
Huh? Sure, I guess.
I just said the first thing that came to my mind. If Adachi were to actually become a member of the Shimamura household, then what would that entail? There was one thing I knew for sure, and that was that we definitely need to stop being girlfriends. Or would we? Could we not just stay like we were? I almost got a feeling like it might work out just fine. Oh, but don't get me wrong, I wasn't saying that us both being sisters and girlfriends at the same time wouldn't come with its fair share of difficulties, because it almost certainly would. No, what I meant was more to the point that it'd already be too late to be worrying about such things. That said, even if they were to become sisters, it was difficult for me to imagine Adachi and my little sister ever getting along. The impression I got was that they both dig themselves a nest, burrow into it, and then never interact with each other. Also, I'd almost certainly be the older sister and Adachi the younger.
Teehee. I'll make you my daughter as well.
I am your daughter already.
I'm aware. Yes. Thank you very much.
The woman proceeded to press her toes against my back. I swear she was doing this on purpose.
You're being at least 30% more annoying than when I left.
My. That's not a nice thing to say.
Don't you agree? She turned to ask Yashiro, who was currently being held by the nape of the neck. The girl didn't respond, being too focused on staring at the bag I had with me that had the donuts inside it. Her stubby limbs could be seen flapping about. Truly, how simple could she get?
Sorry for the intrusion.
Adachi stated, followed by a timid bow. She too had taken off her shoes and was currently standing next to me. Why did she sound so nervous? Was it because she found it weird the way Mom and I were talking? On second thought, that actually sounded like a pretty sensible explanation.
Ah, yes. Welcome. Please, enjoy yourself.
Somehow, I got the feeling that would be difficult for Adachi to do. It was there that Mom noticed what she had on.
Ah, that's quite the fabulous outfit you're wearing.
Oh, this. I figured it makes Shimamura happy and.
She mumbled, in an attempt to form something resembling an explanation. And so I ended up being dragged in too. With a cheeky smile on her face, Mom turned to look at me.
Really now? That's what you're into?
Huh? What do you mean I'm into?
I love it too, Adachi.
Yay! Mom added while lifting her thumb high into the air. Seeming unsure as to how she was meant to react, Adachi immediately turned my way. Don't ask me, I wanted to tell her. It wasn't like I had any clue what the woman was doing either. I didn't. And because of that, I thought it would be fun to do the same.
Yay!
I lifted my thumb and pointed it at Adachi. Besides those of me and Mom, I also noticed that there was a third one, a smaller one. Now, surrounded by thumbs from all sides, Adachi could be seen growing even more flustered. It didn't take long for her to have been backed into a wall. Now then, what next? I hadn't really given that part any thought. My own thumb was almost starting to tremble when thankfully Mom came to the rescue.
I'll be getting dinner ready.
With that, she tossed Yashiro off, turned around, and began heading towards the kitchen. It was as if the girl was her pet or something. Speaking of, Yashiro had already recovered from the landing and was now circling the donut bag with a greedy look on her face. Though dressed like a lion, the way in which she was acting more closely resembled that of a cat. She seriously looked like she might attempt to snatch them any second now, and as such, it was a very lucky thing that I spotted a familiar figure peering at us from the other end of the hallway. I quickly motioned for her to come over. Looking slightly hesitant, the girl did as she was told. An expression of shock could once again be seen on Adachi's face. I had to say, though, it was very different compared to how she'd looked when Mom showed up.
Good evening.
She mumbled in an attempt to greet my sister.
Good evening.
The girl whispered back. I got the impression she could barely get the words out of her mouth. That was more or less how she always acted when trying to talk to people outside of our family.
Good evening.
As for this little ball of joy who'd decided to butt in on her own accord, she never showed any bit of hesitation, regardless of who she was talking with. I turned to have a look at her, and wouldn't you know it, her eyes were still fixated on the donut bag I'd brought with me. I shook the thing from left to right, and she followed accordingly.
Here, here.
It was kind of fun, and so I kept doing it some more. Every time Yashiro moved her head, more of those glowy particles would be emitted from her butterfly knot, leaving a trail of light behind her. Though definitely pretty in its own right, the impression I got looking at her was that she'd be willing to keep dancing forever. And as such, I decided that the humane thing to do was not to tease her and give her the bag.
Hooray!
Now, there's one for my sister too. Be a good girl and share, okay?
Okay.
Holding the bag high above her head, Yashiro ran off. As for my sister, she looked at me and then at Adachi. She repeated this a few times before hesitantly turning around and chasing after her friend. A deep sigh left my mouth as I watched the two disappear behind the corner. The air around us instantly felt lighter.
Sorry about that. As you can see, it's kinda busy around here.
No, I don't mind.
Were there usually this many footsteps present at Adachi's home? I had to assume that there weren't. This was not at all the sort of atmosphere Adachi enjoyed. I kind of felt bad for inviting her over while knowing that. That said, Adachi's wishes weren't everything that mattered. I had my own world too, one visible to me. That world required both Adachi as well as other people besides her. Peering into the kitchen, I saw that the dinner table had been overrun by all sorts of dishes cooked up by Mom. The one connecting factor that they all shared was that they seemed tailor-made for the palates of little children, as well as the woman herself.
Hey, Yachi, snacks come after dinner.
Do they?
Yep, there won't be enough room for food left in your stomach otherwise. Then again, I'm not sure if that has ever been an issue for you.
Anyway, this still won't do, the girl quickly added. After all these years, it was kind of weird seeing her act like an older sister to someone else. The two of them were currently sitting side by side. Oh, would Adachi and I sit like that too? Yeah, probably. I couldn't really imagine it any other way. I took my seat, and, sure enough, Adachi sat down on the one to the left of it. This was the proper way for us to sit, as I'd learned during the school trip. Doing it in inverse would only lead to our elbows bumping against each other. Sitting there, a sweet fragrance soon flooded my nose. It was quickly followed by the warmth of the kitchen.
Huh?
I went ahead and counted all of our family members. I made sure to include Adachi as well, and yet, even after checking twice, there still seemed to be one seat too many. I was about to ask who it was for, but before I could open my mouth, Dad showed up.
My. It's all girls, as far as the eye can see. I can't help but feel a little out of place.
Ha 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 ha! The man laughed with an empty cup in hand.
In that case, allow me to be your friend.
It was Yashiro who said that, followed by raising her hand high into the air. She'd already found herself a plastic fork from somewhere.
Oh, really? Wow, what a nice girl you are.
Indeed. I'm a very good person.
Say, whose kid are you exactly? I feel like you always hang around our house.
I come from the house next door.
What a ridiculous explanation. How on earth was anyone going to buy that?
Next door. Huh, so, like... Right, next door.
Him, apparently. Seeing Dad brush away a matter simply because he couldn't be bothered to think about it kinda made me feel like it might run in the family.
I apologize for the intrusion.
Seeing that this was her chance, Adachi went ahead and humbly greeted the man. Had the two ever talked to one another before? As far as I could remember, no, they had not. Dad gave her a simple nod in response. Needless to say, he sounded far more cool and collected than she did.
Friend of Hougetsu's?
Yes, that is correct.
Adachi replied. Looking at her, it was clear that at least an objection had appeared in her mind that she'd chosen to keep to herself. Had she corrected Dad and said that she was actually my girlfriend, would that have given our otherwise pleasant Christmas an ugly turn? More than likely, yeah. We might have had to have a family council over chicken.
Oh, right. You're the one from before.
Dad said suddenly after having another look at her. He seemed to remember her by the china dress.
It's good to be young. You're not bound by rules and can do what you want.
I suppose that was a view to have regarding her choice of outfit. While I didn't exactly disagree, there was a part of me that found it just a tad bit overly positive.
I get that.
I get it often too. People call me a loose cannon and whatnot. Does that mean I'm young? Huh? Sure.
The way Dad responded to Mom was like the textbook definition of an answer you gave when you just didn't want to think.
I'll lose cannon.
He mumbled to himself, expressing a variety of different emotions in the process. You might have expected someone to step up at this point and defend the woman, to tell her those remarks weren't accurate, but no one did.
I wish they'd call me free-spirited or something. At least that would be...
Mom was in the middle of adding something when all of a sudden the doorbell rang. Who was it? The delivery man? I didn't need to think about it for long, as soon enough...
Oh, finally.
Finally what?
You! If anyone should know.
Gleefully, the woman got up from her seat.
My friend came.
Your friend? Who?
Who is she talking about? I asked Dad using my eyes, to which the man shrugged his shoulders. He seemed just as clueless as I was. Together, we watched as Mom made her way to the door. Though she was the sort of person with lots of friends, trying to pinpoint someone she was close enough with to invite over for dinner? Not even we, her family members, had any clue as to who that might be.
Here she is. Give a warm welcome to our special guest.
Huh?
Huh?
Me or Adachi? Which one of us had let out that gasp right there? We were both so shocked, it was almost impossible to tell. The
person Mom proceeded to drag inside by her arm turned out to be none other than Adachi's mother. She was frowning initially, but as soon as she spotted her daughter, that expression was replaced by one much sorrow. As for Adachi, she looked like she hadn't even had time to react properly, which just went to show how shocking this whole situation must have been to her.
What's going on?
Seeing how Adachi was in no position to ask that herself, I decided to do it in her instead.
I told you, she's my friend.
Since when?
Since yesterday.
Sit here, she added, guiding the woman next to her on seat.
At least, let me take my coat off first.
The woman debuted.
Oh, actually, would you prefer sitting next to your daughter?
Huh?
This time, it was without a doubt Adachi who let out that grasp. Her voice sounded high-pitched, making it clear that she was unable to accept Mom's suggestion. No sparkle could be seen in her mother's eyes. Instead, a deep sigh left her mouth as she folded her coat.
It's fine. There's no need.
Really? Well, in that case, how about opposite of her?
Hurry, Mom added while tapping the back of the chair. It was like she was talking to a child. I could faintly hear the other woman mumble something to the effect of,
Shut up!
as she took her seat. There we were, Adachi and I, sitting opposite our mothers. It all felt like the setup for some sort of a big joke. I was able to, more or less, guess where the two knew each other from. It had to be the gym, right? Probably. Now, how deep did their relationship go? Considering that I never heard Mom bring her up till this very moment, I had to assume not so deep. It was there that the woman turned towards Dad and gave him a small nod.
I apologize for the intrusion.
Oh, no. It's fine. You're this one's mother.
The man asked. His eyes pointed at Adachi. The expressions they had on their faces did pretty much match perfectly, and so I suppose it wasn't that hard to tell.
I am.
Adachi's mother stated blandly. Speaking of Adachi, she was calmly sinking into her seat. As was often the case, she kind of resembled a dog in the way she was acting.
We go to the same gym. Her name is... It is... Sakura, right?
That'd be my daughter.
That one, she pointed at Adachi without turning her head or moving her eyes.
Right. You are... Adachi's mother.
Good grief with you.
That was a very dignified way of telling her to shut up. Of course, knowing Mom, I take a lot more than that to make her close her mouth. Putting that aside, the woman switched the topic with her eyes. I could almost see a sun on wall behind her. Was that because of how hot it was in the room, or because of something else?
It has been a while.
Thanks.
Thanks? What an awkward way to greet someone. Then again, never in a million years had I expected us to meet under these circumstances, so I hope you can cut me some slack. Adachi was following the conversation from the side and seemed very eager to hear what was going on.
Some stuff happened earlier.
It's no big deal, really.
We both wound up making similar excuses at the same time. Though, for real, it hadn't been a big deal. Looking at Adachi, it was clear that she wasn't quite ready to buy that.
I'll tell you some other time.
Again, there wasn't really anything to talk about. I just didn't want to go into detail about how we'd gotten into the sauna together, and had an argument of sorts right there at the dinner table.
Am I not a special guest?
No, because you go here all the time!
Oh, that is true.
Wahahaha, the two girls laughed. Incidentally, I also spotted Dad looking at them with a smile on his face. I couldn't blame him. Once you ignore the fact that one of them was what appeared to be an alien, the sight was actually quite heartwarming.
Ooh, try this out. I made it myself.
Mom mushed the woman. Despite the look on her face showing that she wanted to say something, she still went ahead and accepted the offer. Another thing to know was that, much like her daughter, she too held her chopsticks in her left hand. This led to her elbow constantly clashing with that of Mom sitting next to her. Then again, by the looks of it, Mom seemed to kinda enjoy that too. She was acting even more cheerful than normal today, which, if you knew anything about her, was saying something. Was that just how much she enjoyed the presence of Adachi's mother? Possibly. While the other woman didn't seem quite as enthusiastic, she was still going along with her. Going out with her. Haha. Just joking, of course. Or maybe. I should have seriously smiled into Adachi's direction. Thinking about it, it probably wasn't like they could imagine that their daughters were going out either. So again, maybe. I was kinda scared where those thoughts might lead me, so I decided not to think about them too much.
The food is very flavorful.
That was the woman's first impression as she sampled Mom's cuisine.
It tastes much like your personality,
In the way it permeates into your heart.
in the way it makes my throat dry.
Here's a glass of water.
Ah,
Appearing fed up by the other woman's inability to detect sarcasm, Adachi's mother went ahead and picked up something she'd placed next to her chair before sitting down.
here's something I brought. It's not much, but I didn't want to come empty-handed, so...
Really? Oh, wow. You're a much nicer person than I thought.
Ha ha! Mom laughed while tapping the woman on the shoulder. The frown that formed on her face alone was worth 1,000 words.
So, what did you bring? Peking duck?
Are you an idiot or what? Oh, sorry. Your husband's here. Right.
Adachi's mother quickly took back her words of abuse before shifting her gaze towards Dad. He began the process of unwrapping the cake, and as he noticed he was being stared at, a smile formed on his face.
It's fine, it's fine. No need to apologize when you're right.
How mean. Peking duck is delicious.
That's not what this is about.
Not that I've ever tasted it.
Seriously.
Placing her hand against her forehead, Adachi's mother let out an incredibly long sigh. While the two of them likely weren't aware of it themselves, looking from outside, they came across as very good friends. Mom was very good when it came to forming relationships, which likely had something to do with her tendency to act so overly familiar all of the time. I'd even go as far as to say that she often pushed herself onto others, forging those bonds through force. The same had happened to Dad in the past, and as he always said, the woman was a born player.
Now then, seriously, what did you bring?
Sake and some sweets.
Instantly, all signs of joking around vanished from Mom's face.
I'm terrible with alcohol. Can't handle it. Nuh-uh.
Impossible, she shook her hand in front of her. Now that I thought about it, I couldn't remember ever seeing her drink around the house. Dad, on the other hand, he'd often be walking about with an open car of beer in hand. What about me? Would I be able to drink once I got older? As much as I hated to admit it, I did resemble Mom a lot, so perhaps not.
I don't blame you for getting it wrong. People too often tell me I always act like I'm drunk.
Mom laughed. This was what I resembled? I could feel my face twitch a little. As for Adachi, given that her mother had brought alcohol with her, the answer was likely yes. Naturally, having been just fake delinquents and not little ones, we at no point had even thought about experimenting with such things. Thinking back to it now, was the act of skipping school alone really enough to qualify one as a delinquent? No, it probably wasn't. Not that any good student should engage in such activities regardless. Absolutely not.
Now, go ahead. Say something to your daughter.
Mom was once again back to pestering Adachi's mother. The tone of her voice sounded very forceful, almost like she was gripping her by the shoulders. Even Adachi appeared a little shocked.
That is...
Fine. Yes.
This time, her words came out soft, harboring within them clear compassion. She'd always been very good at that, pitching up the tempo. As for the other woman, she looked more or less done trying to compete with her. There was something about the expression on her face that very much reminded me of Adachi. Adachi's mother returned her plate and chopsticks to the table before turning to look at her daughter, sitting directly opposite her. You could see the corners of her eyes twitch a little as she did so. Similarly, Adachi straightened out her back and squared her shoulders. They both looked like they were getting ready for an interview or something.
Now then.
Appearing unsure as to what to say, the woman went ahead and cleared her throat. She then tried again, but just like the last time, the words once again seemed to have refused to come to her.
Shall I write you a script?
Shut up!
She lashed out, followed by her physically pressing her hand on Mom's mouth. With her mouth black, Mom then turned to look at me. Even without words, it was clear that what she was telling me to do was give Adachi a push, to solve the situation somehow. What was something Adachi might want to talk about? Honestly, nothing really came to mind. Plus, I didn't exactly want to force her to talk either. It was for that reason, and a few others, that I decided it'd be fastest to simply trust in the adults.
Let's just wait a moment.
I said to Adachi while grasping her hand under the table. She responded by grasping me back. With her hand still on Mom's mouth, Adachi's mother tipped her gaze slightly downwards. What came up after all that thinking was neither an awareness change nor a soft expression of love.
You should dress more warmly during winter.
But an extremely awkward showing of worry.
Okay.
That was all Adachi said back to her. Judging by how hard she was gripping my hand, simply being able to do that had taken her a lot of effort. The two ended up not exchanging any further words throughout the entire night. There was only one person who appeared satisfied, and that was Mom. She had the widest smile on her face. What about me? What did I think about all of this? Slowly, I went ahead and touched my cheek. Doing so, I was more or less able to come to terms with my feelings.
Are you having fun, Adachi?
Adachi was currently focused entirely on her mother. It was honestly kinda weird seeing her stare at someone who wasn't me. Really, it was. I could feel myself blushing at the thought. At the same time, there was something kinda interesting about it that made it impossible for me to look away. The confusion had caused Adachi's eyes to grow slightly wet. This also made them glimmer in a way that it hadn't before. All in all, the sight was simply beautiful.
Adachi, are you having fun?
I asked her, like inserting my finger into a crevice in the turmoil.
No.
Like was often the case with her, Adachi put no effort into hiding what she truly felt. However,
Not really.
Unlike usual, her voice this time had just the slightest sliver of warmth to it. The end.
Ooh, all right. Here we go.